Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's Wildlife Wednesday Monthly Roundup. I'm Tenley Thompson.
And hi everyone, my name is Tyler Greenley.
And we're so excited to have you this month. We've got videos from all over the greater Yellowstone ecosystem of some of the best wildlife sightings that we in the guides have been seeing throughout the month. So let's go ahead and get started with some carnivore action.
Oh hey guys, this is Laura. I'm here with a midsummer predator report from the parks, where I've been seeing both bears and wolves, but also badgers and coyotes too. Just yesterday, I had an amazing encounter with the Junction Butte pack. They just have relocated the new pups of the year from the den site out into the Lamar Valley. So yesterday we saw a rendezvous between the pack and 6 of their pups when an adult wolf brought some food back for the pack. The other 2 pups are still back by the den site, and we're hoping that in the coming days the pack goes back to get them. But I think they'll be fine in the meantime. We also had the chance to see a grizzly bear digging with his big long claws for roots in the dirt. He was digging for hours in the morning. I've also had a chance to see grizzly bear number 399 this month. I've seen her just twice, so she's been a little bit more scarce, but she and her 4 cubs are still looking amazing. Their coats look nice and shiny. They're putting on some weight, starting to get ready for the upcoming hibernation. And with the bison rut in full swing, perhaps some of those bull bison who are battling with each other so hard might, die during a battle, and then a grizzly bear might be able to get some meat. But recently I had a really cool sighting of a badger with a coyote. They were actually working as a team to hunt for Uinta ground squirrels, which are also known as chislers. They work as a team in a cooperative relationship to excavate ground squirrels from the underground tunnels. Badgers are great diggers, kind of like a grizzly bear, but with longer claws. They specialize in going down underneath the ground with loose skin that can help them twist down through the underground tunnels to capture ground squirrels. And then coyotes can work at the surface at the same time as the badgers hunting underneath the ground to, capture any of those squirrels that blow up out of those underground holes. So to see that symbiotic relationship in effect out in the parks is just a special treat for me. Well, thanks for watching. I hope to bring to you some other updates in the future. And cheers. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura, so much for telling us a little bit about the carnivores in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Super amazing sightings she's been having out in Lamar Valley and in Grand Teton National Park. That badger is a pretty unique animal to see out there. So really excellent sighting. Awesome, guys. So up next, we have Sarah Ernst. I'm super thrilled that she took the time to make us a really great video on breeding birds. Last month, we talked a lot about the breeding mammals in Grand Teton National Park. So let's head over to Sarah and hear what she has to say about breeding birds in Grand Teton National Park.
Because raptors can sometimes abandon their eggs or young when disturbed too much by people, at ecotours we tend to be quiet about any nests that we find. But sometimes we're lucky enough to find a nest that we can watch from a distance through the scope. And that was the case with this bald eagle family. With bald eagles, we can watch their whole life cycle from beginning to end. They will mate in midwinter and lay their eggs from the end of winter to beginning of spring. The female begins incubating the first egg before laying the second egg. That gives the first chick to hatch a big advantage over the second chick in terms of size and also aggressiveness. If there's enough food to feed both chicks will receive some meat. But with the extra advantage of the larger chick, if there's not enough food to feed both, the bigger chick will receive most of the food and be able to survive. This seems harsh, but it's a way of making sure at least one of your young is able to make it. Unlike baby eagles, which take several months to leave the nest, baby sandhill cranes, which we call colts for their awkwardly long legs, will begin to follow their parents less than a day after hatching. Both the male and the female take care of the young, and the young are able to even follow their parents into the water and swim, despite the lack of webbed feet. Given all the threats out there to sandhill eggs and chicks, like environmental conditions such as flooding and weather, human disturbance, and predators, both avian and mammalian, and the fact that sandhill cranes typically only have 2 eggs, I find that sandhill crane reproduction to be the most miraculous of all the different animals we watch. Both sandhills and Canada geese have to be taught how to migrate by their parents, so we see them following their parents around through the fall and into the winter and even into spring. In comparison, many of our other birds, such as songbirds, raptors, and even our tiny little hummingbirds, learn how to migrate on their own, either through instinct or just trial and error.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks to all the guides who contributed to that video. All right, next up for you guys, we've got a real treat, which is a good inside look at the research done in Grand Teton National Park for bird banding. One of our eco-tour guides, Charlotte, is heavily involved and invested in this effort and went ahead and gave us an inside look. Let's check it out.
Hey everyone, it's your Eco Tour Guide Charlotte here, and I'm about to talk to you all about some volunteer bird banding I've been able to do with the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation. Bird banding is an important tool to help gauge bird populations. In order to bird band, one must have a permit. Then these permitted bird banders go out and set up fine mist nets. The birds then fly into the nets without injury. After being caught, the bander comes by and carefully extracts the bird before taking them back to the banding table, where each bird is then given an individual, uniquely numbered leg band that can be used to identify the bird, should it be recaptured at the given site or another site at a later date. Once a bird is in hand, certain aspects are documented, such as morphometric measurements like wing length or tail length. The sex, age, and breeding status are also noted. Overall health, feather wear, and weight are also taken. So for this specific program, called Monitoring Avian Productivity and Survivorship, or MAPS, banders go out once in a 10-day span over the summer months in the hopes of capturing and recapturing birds at a specific site. By doing this, banders gather data that helps scientists understand breeding status and survivorship of birds in a local area that, when combined with data from other MAP stations across North America, many of which have been operating for years, gives rise to an understanding of bird populations, therefore helping scientists understand which species may be increasing or decreasing over time. Now here's Hillary Turner to tell you a little bit about the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation.
Hi, I'm Hillary from the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation, where our mission is to advance wildlife conservation through science, collaboration, and a community of wonderful volunteers that we have. If you would like to support our programs, such as our MAPS banding station, please visit our website at jhwildlife.org.
Thank you, Charlotte, so much for making and capturing that video for us. That bird footage was pretty exceptional and really cool to see. The Teton Raptor, Raptor banding group, who is
Teton Raptor Center, yes.
Teton, yeah, they're associated with Grand Teton National Park and the Teton Raptor Center. And so their research is really important for understanding bird populations in the United States.
Yeah, a big thanks to the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation for permission to use some of that footage. It's a really, really great organization, something we definitely support at EcoTour Adventures through our Dollars for Conservation program. Actually, Grand Teton National Park, the Teton Raptor Center, and the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation all do get funding. We give 2% annually of our programming to local conservation causes, both through Dollars in Conservation and also through our newest effort, Wildlife Tourism for Tomorrow. If you're interested in understanding a little bit more about that effort and trying to make sure that we're giving back to the wildlife that we rely on and enjoy viewing, check out wildlifetourismfortomorrow.com for more information on that organization. Definitely worth a quick look. All right, in the meantime...
Yeah, we have our trivia question.
Who's ready for trivia?
Woohoo! So last week we asked you guys if you could name all of the ungulate species in Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park. Or we asked you, and we also asked you how many there are.
Yeah.
And so thank you everyone who submitted answers. The answer is there are 8 ungulates in Grand Teton National Park. And I put together a little video to kind of show you some of this, or all the species that are located in Grand Teton National Park. So the first species we have is the bighorn sheep, which you can see here climbing on the rocks. They're one of our bovines. Also living up on the cliffs are the mountain goats, seen here up in Yellowstone. And we also have bison, which are another one of our horned animals, our largest ungulate. Actually, it can weigh up to 2,000 pounds,
yeah.
3 for 3. We have, of course, the moose, fan favorite out here. And then we have some of our smaller ungulates. We have mule deer. Mule deer migrate super long distances out of Grand Teton National Park. This is actually a whitetail deer. A lot of people don't realize, especially if they're back east, that we actually have whitetail.
Yep.
One of our most common ungulates, or actually our most common ungulate, is the elk. And here's a big herd of them. And finally, we have our fastest ungulate, the pronghorn. Look at him marking his territory.
So here at Ecotour Adventures, we actually have a guide record board where we post sort of records. And one of the records out there is, we call it the octoungulate. So an ungulate is just a hoofed mammal, right? The octoungulate is the ability to see all 8 of those species in one day with guests. So you have to be able to pull it off in just one... I think it's a 24-hour period.
I think it's a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
You have to do it in one consecutive day.
You have to see all 8 species. Mm-hmm. That is definitely quite the feat. Do let us know in the comment section how many species you've seen in the Great Yellowstone ecosystem in one day. And if any of you guys were surprised. I know definitely when I first started learning about the ungulate population here in the parks, I was really surprised by white-tailed deer. That would not have been one of the ones I would have picked. And of course, one of the more difficult ones to see, mountain goats.
Yeah.
Definitely native to Yellowstone National Park. Not maybe as native to Grand Teton National Park, which has caused a little bit of controversy down in Grand Teton.
Exactly.
Yeah, so super fun. Thanks everybody who answered last month's trivia question. But of course, now we've got
a new trivia question.
Trivia question.
Yeah.
So we do always like to talk a little bit about the Ecotour web store. Ecotour Adventures has a web store. We've got a lot of really fun products that we use the earnings from that web store to actually support our guides in our office and support them with benefits. So if you'd like to help support the Ecotour Adventures staff, feel free to check out the store. It's got a lot of really fun stuff, particularly really fascinating books about the area, and a lot of really fun products, binoculars that we use, our famous French coffee press. This month, our sponsored item is our Ecotour web store hats. We really love these hats. They're pretty darn awesome. They've got our logo on the side of them. And yeah, they've actually been selling pretty darn well. But yeah, we're pretty psyched about it. If you want one of our snazzy hats, what are you wearing? The bear, and I've got the moose on.
The moose, yeah.
Complete with our logos. I guess it's on this side. Definitely check that out. Elise, who's running our comment section tonight, will definitely give you guys a link to the web store. But definitely, we love these hats. We're big fans, so we thought we'd show those off for you guys.
They're pretty cool. I love them.
Yes!
Yeah.
Okay, so Tyler, what is this month's trivia question? Oh, to answer. Okay, sorry. So let me back up. The winner of our trivia question gets a gift card to our web store, and you can do something like buy a hat if you wanted to. So if you think you know the answer to this month's trivia question, just put your answer in the comment section as Tyler is asking it. We'll go ahead and we'll let you know there is it's sort of a double trivia question, because some of our geniuses like Don Meyer, who joins us every month, and I know he's here in the comment section, have told us that our first question is oftentimes a little easy. So you get an entry for getting the regular trivia question right, and then there's a bonus And if you can answer the bonus, you get a point for that as well. And then one lucky winner will get the web store gift certificate.
Exactly.
So, all right, get your comment section ready. And Tyler, okay, what's the question this month?
All right, guys, so I'm going to start out with a little bit of an intro. I made a little video. This one's very unique. You know, we often show large animals for our trivia questions. I thought it would be kind of different this week to show a smaller animal that we see in the summertime here in Grand Teton National Park. So here we go. The animal for this month's trivia question is the stonefly. And if you don't know what a stonefly is, it's a little insect that lives in streams and in rivers in Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Park. They feed on the algae underneath rocks, and in the spring they climb up onto the bank and come out of their exoskeleton. Awesome. So the trivia question this week is, how long do adult stoneflies live? A, 3 months, B, 3 weeks, or C, 3 days? Let us know what you think in the comment section. And then here's the bonus question.
Ew.
What are the 3 main groupings of stoneflies documented in Grand Teton National Park? Salmonflies, golden stoneflies, green stoneflies, or
B or C.
Yeah, B or C.
Yeah. You can definitely rewind and get all those
Yes.
details for sure.
Exactly.
That one, the bonus question was tough. I
That's
actually
really
struggled a little bit. So if you know the answer to that one, total credit to you, because Tyler stumped me with that one earlier today when he came up with it. I need to get my stonefly knowledge on for sure. My father taught me to be a good fly fisher woman, but it's definitely a work in progress. So my stonefly identification always could use some work. But thanks, Tyler, for this month's trivia question.
We'll have to see if there's any fishermen in the comment section.
Oh,
today.
yeah, because you'll probably know like really quick.
Right? My dad will know immediately.
Yes. But it is time, of course, for our favorite part of our Wildlife Wednesday monthly broadcast, which is the question and answer session. So if you have a question for a naturalist or biologist about Grand Teton, Yellowstone, the natural world in general, you want to talk about some of the sort of interesting things that are going on in the ecosystem right now, anything really you want to chat about, Tyler and I are here to answer your questions. This is all ages. So if you are 5 and you have a question, we're super excited to answer that. And if you're 105, we're super excited to answer that. All you have to do is write in the comment section. Now, I'll warn you that we're using our iPad here to read the comments. So if you see us kind of looking down, it's because we're actually looking at the comments as they come in. So we don't mean to be rude, but what we'll do is we'll sort of check these out. We're going to start all the way at the top, and we'll kind of make our way down and see if we can't get you guys some answers. So type away. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, some great answers for the trivia question. That's fantastic. You guys, man, you guys are too smart, I swear. I keep thinking we're going to stump you, and we never seem to be able to stump you. Oh, this is an interesting question. What is your favorite odd couple found in the wild? Oh, that's kind of fun.
That's interesting.
I really like that one.
Odd couple.
I think I've got one. Do you have one?
You go ahead. Let's see.
So a pretty common odd couple that I really enjoy are that ravens love to pick on predators. And they probably are picking on them for a couple different reasons. I don't mean by pick on them. It's not unusual to see a raven go right up to a grizzly bear and like pull hair out of his head and then fly away and do sort of a laughing caw and then wait until the grizzly bear's just settled down for a nap and is just closing his eyes and then go back in and bite his ear. And then, of course, the grizzly, after like 5 or 6 versions of this, is like, ah, stop it.
He's so mad.
And gets super frustrated. And like ecologically, there's probably the idea that maybe if they annoy the bear enough, oftentimes grizzly bears, after they make a kill, will kind of bury it in soil. And that's so that other predator animals aren't going to try to get a slice, right? Mm-hmm. And a raven, I think I read somewhere they eat a pound of food.
It's a ridiculous amount for their body weight.
Yeah, so if you had like 50 ravens on a carcass, they'd be eating 50 pounds.
Exactly.
Right, and if you figure there's...
oh my gosh, thousands out there.
Yeah, and in the course of 24 hours, they just take your whole elk
Yeah.
if you killed one. So it's important to bury it. Maybe they're going and they're like pulling the hair from their heads and grabbing on their rear ends and snipping at their ears. Maybe they're doing it because they hope the grizzly will move.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But in
Just
reality,
annoy them enough, pester them enough that they're going to.
ravens definitely have like near human intelligence, higher order cognitive thinking, and it's probably just really fun.
I think so.
And you can sometimes see them like sitting on a tree branch nearby, almost like edging each other on.
Exactly.
Like, come on, bro.
Like clawing at each other.
Go get him. Go get him.
Your turn to pull the ear.
Yeah. And you can actually see them kind of like daring each other to go mess with the grizzly. I don't know about you, but I have zero interest in plucking a hair off the top of a sleeping grizzly's head and seeing what happens. I also can't fly.
Yes.
That takes
Fast like a raven.
guts. Can you imagine? Like if I was a bear, I would just keep my eyes just shut and wait.
Just slightly.
And then wait for them and just plop
Smack
them out of the sky and smack them down and make a point. But yeah, that's a good odd couple. I definitely enjoy that grouping. I think they're pretty fun.
And I think that behavior is pretty effective when it comes to other birds. So ravens will also pester bald eagles and golden eagles away from kills. And in those scenarios, they're often more successful.
Well, so there you go. Tyler, who's our resident bird nerd, definitely knows more about this than I do. I just think they're having fun. But yes, I can see with a smaller animal like an eagle, where that actually might work.
Grizzly bears are, they're persistent also, the grizzlies.
But like, how many people
They're
do
stubborn.
you know who pick on a grizzly bear? Who are this big? It's pretty impressive stuff. So thanks very much for that question. Let's see what else we've got here. Oh, Maddie, who usually moderates our comment section, definitely says his great pairing that he likes are grizzly bears and beavers. Side by side is not that uncommon because they love to hang out in riparian habitats, and every once in a while you can get them in the same spotting scope view, which is just totally bizarre. They're both keystone members of the ecosystem, which is to say with their presence lots of other animals are able to survive and thrive, and so it's kind of neat when you can kind of see them paired up together. So that's pretty good. I love that one.
And the most common example are beavers and moose.
Yeah.
Moose often use beaver habitat. That's what we talk a lot about on tour. But a lot of other animals also use beaver habitat. Deer, elk, bears, tons of nesting and aquatic birds use beaver habitat. So beavers, would be an odd couple with most of the animal kingdom here in Grand Teton National Park.
Our eco tour guide Charlotte, gosh, she got some video of a moose and a beaver
so
in the
cool.
same spotting scope. I want to say like a week or two ago. It was very, very funny. And there's just wonderful commentary in the background that you can hear of her guests, particularly the little ones on her trip, just thinking that that's just such a funny pairing. So that's fantastic. I love it. Let's see here. Margaret says, glad to see 399 and her 4 cubs doing well. Margaret, they are doing really well. They look round, they look fit, they look happy. I always like to say on this show, because I'm a Debbie Downer, that grizzly cubs can have up to an 80% mortality rate under the age of 2. And so I always keep sort of warning everybody, 4 cubs is kind of asking a lot to raise to adulthood, and we should all be prepared, and everybody kind of poo-poos me. Here's the thing. I've been saying that about 399 and her triplets and her twins for years, and she's just so good at successfully raising cubs to subadulthood. They oftentimes get themselves in trouble after that, but she's very good at raising them to subadulthood. So I would like to eat raven, so to speak.
Eat raven in this
because I had
case.
no idea that they would survive and thrive to the extent they have as a group of 4.
It's pretty impressive. A couple weeks ago, I wasn't on tour. I was exploring the park on my own. I saw 399 this I think was the beginning of June, actually running away from a large male grizzly that was pursuing them, and they all obviously all escaped. But that is a real danger, and it's very impressive that she's able to raise such large litters to 2 years of age.
Yeah,
it's very impressive.
I don't know if it's actually ever been done. We don't have any historic recorded success rate. Now, lots of bears live in the backcountry, and we don't always necessarily see all of the ones with offspring, but it probably would be a first known time, at least in the continental United States, that a grizzly bear was going to be able to successfully raise 4 cubs. Now, I'm probably getting ahead of myself. We also didn't explain who Grizzly 399 was. If you're like joining us for the first time and you feel like you're just like watching a cult broadcast about bears, kind of. live. No, but in all seriousness, Grizzly Bear 399 is a very famous grizzly bear. Some people say she's the most famous grizzly in the world. She lives in Grand Teton National Park most of the time, and she has quadruplets. She has 4 cubs.
It's really, really
which
cool
is
and impressive.
incredibly rare. It's so rare we don't even have the odds of having 4 cubs.
Yeah.
It's pretty darn remarkable, and people really love her. She's got like a big following on social media and on the ground. I did get a chance to see her yesterday morning. That was my last view of her, and they look great. They look absolutely fabulous as a family. Really fun to see her. This time of year, grizzly bear sightings can be a little bit less common.
Yeah. It's hot out, and there's not a lot of food down in the lowlands, so they migrate up into the hills.
Yeah.
And so sightings of them become, more and more sparse as the temperatures go up.
Yeah. It's very funny, but one of their main important elements of their diet in the late summer and fall is army cutworm moths.
Yeah.
Which are actually an agricultural pest in the Midwest. But they only go up into the high country above the tree line, up in the scree fields. And bears actually knock boulders over and eat moths because they've got a wonderful caloric content. So the vast majority of our grizzly bears are up in the high country right now. Grizzly Bear 399, however, has stayed down low as our berry crop has begun to come in. She's having a really good time, particularly with those service berries out there.
Exactly.
And those cubs are getting pretty good at mowing those service berries down. They've turned
They're
into
pretty
little
delicious.
lawnmowers. Yeah, they are.
They're pretty
they really
delicious.
Are. Definitely. Guide Laura said she had a great hike the other day with huckleberries.
Yeah.
So the huckleberries have come into full fruit as well.
And there's been currant berries out also.
Oh, I haven't seen
There's
that.
been a
That's
couple different types of currant berries that are beginning to come into season. And I think they're edible now. They're still a little tart, but in 2 weeks or so, they're going to be super sweet and ready for picking.
Yeah. Oh, and in the comment section, our guide Elise actually said she was picking chokecherries the other day.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So I know we're in the middle of a drought, but the berry season seems to be okay. I do worry about our berry crop. Grizzly bears do best when we have a good berry season. Gives them lots of food, particularly in hyperphagia in the fall when they're up 24 hours a day stuffing their faces with food. It's really important. Berries are a very important part of their fat building. And sometimes in drought years, about once in a decade, our berry crop will fail, and that can cause more interactions with humans, getting into garbage, getting them into trouble. And so we always do worry a little about the berry crop, and it does seem to be doing pretty well. So, all right, we got a way tangent there, but thank you very much, Margaret. Let's see here. Libby, love the masks. I need more as I go back to my 4th grade classroom. We've got just a bunch. Oh gosh, I want to say like 15 left. We'll have to see if we can get more. Yeah. We love them. It's the ones the guides use on tour because you can wear them all day. They don't wear on the back of your ears. So definitely check out the web store for those. I love those masks.
They're super nice.
Fun. They're super nice. Let's see here.
And they're pretty comfortable. They don't pull on your ears as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one. So Sadie says, on one of my trips to Alaska, I learned that when the fireweed turns to cotton, summer is soon forgotten. It's the same in the Great Yellowstone ecosystem. Well, Sadie, that's a really good question. And the short version is on the valley floor. Yes, fireweed is one of the last to bloom of summer, but it kind of depends on your altitude.
It does. And some of our low elevation fireweed is almost already done, while some at the 10,000 feet are just beginning to bloom. So it does depend on your altitude. I would say higher up in the mountains at about 10,000 feet, when that fireweed does go to seed, summer is coming to a close just because they do bloom so late in the season. Down in the valley floor, we have a couple other flower species that will bloom after fireweed.
Yeah. And if you've never seen fireweed before, beautiful, beautiful plant.
It's so pretty.
Maybe we'll get Elise on the comment section to look up some fireweed because I know she can probably grab some of that real quick for us.
And it's pretty tall. It's really beautiful pink colored flower, and it can be up to your chest in height. So if you walk through like a meadow of fireweed, it's really cool. You're just in the sea of pink.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of it's an intrinsic part of our ecosystem. Now, it's called fireweed for a really good reason, in that it's one of the first things that you see come up after an area's been burnt. Fireweed germinates really well in the light gaps and in the burn gaps and the fertility that's brought in after a fire. And so fireweed can grow wherever, but it can grow particularly well in newly burned areas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one of those first colonizer species. And another kind of cool fact about fireweed is the roots are edible.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Very
and
cool.
it was used as people would store the roots for the winter. So it was a starvation food source for those super long winters for the explorers and Native Americans.
Oh, wow. Well, we're always really careful to tell you not to do anything without consulting your local expert. But yes, I guess if you're starving, fireweed.
Yes.
I'll keep that in mind.
Don't go and try it. This is just, a cool fact.
We did that a couple years ago because I was talking about all the cool berries in the Great Yellowstone ecosystem and how you could tell them apart. But there are some ones that are poisonous, and we definitely didn't want anybody to go eat a berry on our behalf or water them off or something.
So before you go and pick berries, a really good thing you should look up is look up the species baneberry.
Yeah.
They're super lovely, very beautiful, but you do not want to eat them. They're one of the most poisonous plants out there. You do not want to eat baneberry.
And if you've got that straight, that's probably the only one that's really going to kill you. The rest of them could make, there's a couple other ones that make you unhappy.
Sick. Yeah.
But there's wonderful, wonderful berries out here that are well worth trying once you've either gone out with an expert or you have experience. It's really, really fun. One of my favorite things to do on a tour is to pick berries and let guests try different things out, particularly huckleberries, for sure.
Oh, they're so good.
Yes. The Wyoming Native Plant Society actually has berry hikes every summer. So if you live somewhere in the Great Yellowstone ecosystem, definitely look that up and go out on one of the hikes, and they'll sort of show you all the good and edible foods out there and all the fun things to try, for sure. So super fun.
If you guys have ever gone berry picking before, leave in the comment section below your favorite berry species that
what
you've
berries
had
do you have
before.
where you are? Yeah, I find everywhere in the country, everybody's got these novel berry types, and sometimes I've never heard of them. Yeah. They only grow in sort of a limited area.
Exactly.
And they're so much sweeter and they're so much more interesting than oftentimes what you can find in the
They're sometimes super localized.
Yeah. Yeah, super fascinating. I'd love to see that. Definitely let us know. All right, let's see what else we got here. Kate asks, will 399's cubs den up with her this winter?
They will. Yes, so grizzly bear cubs den with their mother for 2 years, and then in their third spring is when she does evict them or kick them out, and then at that point they're on their own. And so 399's cubs will go into hibernation this winter. Maddie, one of our guides, recently, a couple weeks ago, posted a video of 399, just walking across the road, and in the comment section, he was like, she must have the largest, most massive den ever, because by the time these cubs go into their second hibernation, they're going to be almost full size. Yeah. They're going to be almost as big as her. So think of how big of a den she must have to have them cohabitate with her in the winter.
It's got to be a monster den.
Oh my gosh, it has to be huge.
Now, full disclosure, I have checked out a couple bear dens over the years, and it's remarkable how much they can fit into how small of a space.
Yes.
Which is to say, I am not tiny, but I'm definitely smaller than a grizzly bear, and I struggle to fit in some of these dens. Yeah. By the way, I'm not going anywhere near a den that's actively being used by a bear, has been used by a bear in months, or is currently being used by a bear. I don't want to keep them from using it again. These are bear dens that are a couple of years old. I'm not just randomly
and
bear dens.
And they will sometimes reuse the same den if it worked out well for them, but they will often go and dig a new den.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they're not always coming back to the exact same spot every single winter. 399, she's 25.
Yeah.
She's 25 now. If she was to go back to to the same den every single winter, it'd be totally worn out.
The hole would be huge, and it wouldn't provide any insulation property. So, yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Oh, John, this is a great question. Has there ever been a piebald or albino moose in Yellowstone or Grand Teton National Park? Great question, Don. You always have good questions for us. So for everybody who's like, everybody knows what an albino is, although you might not know technically what it is. It's a rare genetic mutation that keeps skin cells from producing pigment. So there's a couple different kinds of things you can be. You can be an albino, meaning you don't produce any pigment. You can also have melanism, which means you create an excess of pigment. So a good example of that would be an animal who's all black or all dark. Or you could be piebald, and piebald would be an animal where certain areas of their body either produce too much or too little pigment. So they might be splotched with light or dark coloration.
Almost like a cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost like a milk cow.
Now, piebaldism, albinism, melanism, these are things that exist in all mammals and quite a few birds, insects, reptiles,
amphibians.
Anything that has sort of an exoskeleton or an external surface certainly It can produce too much or too little pigment.
Exactly.
Even a birthmark, if you have a very dark coloration spot, is just melanistic cells, right? So there have been a few albino moose that there have been photographs taken of over the years. All of them have been in very northern Canada and Alaska. We've never had an albino moose here in Grand Teton. However, the deer family as a whole, Cervidae, has one of the highest rates of albinism in the mammal world, which is to say it's more common to see an albino deer or elk or moose than it is to see other kinds of mammals. And we don't know why that is, but pretty interesting nonetheless.
I mean, just a genetic disposition for albinism.
Piebaldism in the deer family also is more common than it is in other mammal groups, but not to the same extent that the albinism is. Interestingly enough, we do also see melanistic members of the deer family, but not nearly.
It's very
to
rare.
The likelihood of an albino. Now, an albino is like a 1 in a million, so I don't want to make it sound like they're just all over the place. We've never had in living memory a piebald or an albino moose in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. That doesn't mean they didn't exist. Somebody might not have seen one if they were far in the backcountry. We have so much wilderness here, but it definitely would stick out. I feel like we'd know.
I do believe, because it was alive last year, there was an albino elk in the Gallatins Mountains, which is on the other side of the ecosystem. So we're on the southern end of Yellowstone. The Gallatins are on the northern end, and it was called the ghost elk.
Yeah.
And it's an albino elk that lives kind of far north of here.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to drive our comment section moderator Elise, our guide Elise, crazy and ask her to look up an albino moose image. She may or may not be able to post it. We're really careful not to repost imagery that we don't have permission for or we didn't get permission in advance. So I can't really figure out. I've Googled albino moose and seen it. It's crazy.
It's
so
pretty
if she
weird,
can post it, she will. If she can't, Google it yourself. Definitely check it out. I will say, though, we do have a couple other animals in the ecosystem that we're famous for that have those color trait characteristics. We are famous for our marmots with melanism. So marmots, if you're not familiar, are a rodent. They're about this big. They're normally kind of a wonderful copper color. With a little bit white on their snout. We have a whole population of melanistic black marmots,
so
primarily in Cascade Canyon of Grand Teton National Park. And what's fun about this is, I haven't looked it up, but I'm assuming that marmots must practice what's called incomplete dominance in their coloration, because typically, if you have this mutation, it's a recessive gene, and so you'd have to have two individuals that carry that recessive gene breeding together to produce that color, unless it's like a really bizarre genetic mutation. But some animals have what's called incomplete dominance, where there isn't necessarily a dominant gene. Cattle are very famous for that. That's why cows have spots. But I think, I don't know, I'm not a marmot expert. I'm definitely not a marmot genetic color expert. But I think they must have incomplete dominance, and that you sometimes occasionally see almost a piebald effect, where they'll be like brown underneath and black on top. So we're definitely famous for those. We also have a couple melanistic coyotes in the valley, primarily on the eastern side of Grand Teton National Park. It's usually like one or two at a time. We'll just have like one, and then a couple years later we'll have another one. Remember, the average lifespan of a coyote is pretty short, about 2.5 years on average. They don't live very long. So if I see one and then I don't see one for like 5 years and then I see another one, but it seems throughout my life there's always been one or two melanistic coyotes, which is just wacky.
Exactly. Well, it must be like in their genetics. And so the coyotes, even if a coyote isn't melanistic, it can still carry the genes for melanism and then pass that on to its offspring. So it's very likely that some of the coyotes on the eastern side of Grand Teton have the trait, they're just not expressing it.
Yeah. Interesting kind of funny little side element to all of this. This gene can carry for a long time. Why do we have this mutation? Why does it exist? Well, it could be a random mutation, but sometimes it can be of benefit to the animal over time. A really good example of this would be if you go down into South America and you look at panthers. So some panthers are black and some panthers, of course, are not. Some panthers truly have melanism, but it's so common in that species because it helps with their camouflage. It's becoming increasingly common over time that it's no longer this weird genetic mutation, and instead it's just a color variation. So some animals that are all white colored, or all dark colored, that could be an evolutionary adaptation over time. Now, I will say being completely free of pigments is very different than just being white. So like an Arctic fox doesn't have pink eyes, right? It doesn't have no pigment. It just has evolved a white coat to better camouflage.
Exactly. It's winter coat. You know, Arctic foxes are one of those animals that are brown in the summer and then they change to white in the winter. And so that's purely for camouflage, but that's not albinism. They're not albino.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a common misconception.
Exactly.
The pink eyes are kind of the dead giveaway. We also, I forgot to mention, have had some melanistic foxes as well in Grand Teton. So there you go. More about albinism and piebaldism and melanism. One of my favorite topics actually
It's
about
really
wildlife.
interesting.
It's just, if you are just really bored, just go on like a Google rampage and just Google
It's so
albino
cool.
elephant or albino moose or, you know, albino rhinoceros or and they
Kangaroos, albino kangaroos.
yeah, albino bear. Albino kangaroos are totally weird.
Yes.
Or, you know, piebald cardinal. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
It's like half white, half red. So
Did you
definitely,
hear? Okay, this is totally a tangent, but there was a cardinal that was seen a couple I think last winter that was split down the middle, half male, half female, and so that's a whole nother story.
There's a whole
but,
nother
like,
thing.
There's a whole nother thing, but that's just another example of a really crazy genetic mutation that
Yeah.
sometimes happens to animals.
If you want to get us like on a total like nerd tangent
Yeah.
one of these days on these, either ask us about like hybridization of animals, like if you mix a dolphin and a whale and you get a wolfen,
oh my gosh,
or you know, or how about a donkey and a zebra and you get a
Yes.
zonkey,
A zonkey.
and you know speciation or color variation. We get I just find these things fascinating, but I recognize not everybody does. So we'll move on to the next question. But really great. Thanks for letting me talk a little bit about one of my favorite topics.
And by the way, I think a zonkey is a real animal. So,
Oh no! Google it.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think,
making this
like,
up.
A zonkey is a real animal.
Oh,
so go
zonkies
look
are
it
real.
up.
Yeah, no, they're weird.
I mean, it's like
And
a mule,
wolfen,
but striped.
wolfen is real, guys. Wolfen's real.
Wolfen's real.
And then you got tigers and ligons,
Ligers.
tigons. Oh my god, I get so confused. There's so many. Oh, and
There's telons.
there's zorses too. The horse zebras.
Oh,
Zorses. Yeah.
They're super pretty.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. All right, let's see here. Ooh, this is a good one. Do you want this one? I'm
Yeah,
gonna take
so I'll answer this
Okay,
one.
great.
This one is something that I actually looked up recently because
Yeah.
someone on tour asked me, do the moose migrate? We talk about how the elk migrate, how the mule deer migrate, pronghorn obviously migrate. They go on the path of the pronghorn. But another unknown migratory animal is the moose. And so some moose are residential. They will live in the same area year round. This is particularly common in Wilson, the town of Wilson. We have resident moose there that live year round. But it's also common for moose to be migratory. And actually in the winter, Grand Teton has a population of moose that winters in the northern part of Grand Teton National Park. And we can actually see them on tour in the dead of winter in like 4 feet of snow without any other animals around. Like elk wouldn't be able to survive there.
Oh yeah, Northern Great Teton can get over 1,000 inches of snow, so 50 feet of snow. So if you're an elk, that's migrate or die.
Exactly. But
And
you
the
know,
moose are fine.
the moose, they have those super long, they're almost like giraffe-like legs, and they're also a browser, so they feed a lot, primarily on plants that stick up above the snow, versus the elk, they have to dig through the snow and spend all that energy to get to the grass below. And so this population of moose actually migrates up into Yellowstone National Park, so they cross the Teton Wilderness, they cross the JDR, and they go up into southern Yellowstone. I've seen some of these elk or these moose around the Lewis Lake and the southern entrance of Yellowstone. Some of these moose you won't see because they go to an area that's super remote called Thoroughfare, which is where the Snake River and the Yellowstone River both start. And that's a pretty remote area. Actually, I think the most remote location
in the lower 48. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And that's a distance of about 160 kilometers. So how far is that in miles? Like about 100 miles?
Yeah.
That's about 100-mile migration. And just like the mule deer and just like the elk, they'll do it in stages. Yeah. So great question. That's a question I had, a couple of weeks ago on tour, and I had to look it up and read more about it.
That's always my favorite thing on tours, when somebody really stumps me and I go, I don't know, but I'm going to look it up and get back to you, because that gives me something new to learn.
And guiding is a lot of fun because yes, we're very knowledgeable, but we don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so we are constantly learning where the animals are, different biological facts about the animals, different regional facts. So it's a lot of fun.
Cardinals with both genders.
Exactly.
Pretty cool. All right, let's see here. Scrolling through the comments here. Libbe asks, have you seen 610's cub? Ooh, Libbe, nice controversial one.
Oh boy.
So Libbe, so for those of you guys, once again, if you're new and you're going, what on earth have I tuned into and who are you? Because you missed all the early videos. We're Eco Tour Adventures. I'm Tenley.
And I'm Tyler.
Yes. And Grizzly Bear 610 is a grizzly bear. She lives in Grand Teton National Park. She's the daughter of Grizzly Bear 610.
Or 399.
Grizzly Bear 399, who we were talking about earlier. She's part of the first known litter that Grizzly Bear 399 had, part of a group of triplets. Anyway, 610 has cubs of her own now. She's, she's like 16?
I think like 15, 16 years
somewhere
old.
in
Yeah.
there. She's getting up there. Man, that makes me feel old. So you ever see like somebody, like a kid that you knew as a toddler and now they're like 9 and you're like, gosh, I'm getting old.
Like, oh gosh,
I
they
do
grew
that
fast.
I do that with grizzly bears.
Yeah.
But she had a set of twin cubs 2 years ago, and she sent them off to live on their own this summer. And unfortunately, as is kind of common with subadult cubs, they got themselves into trouble with people relatively quickly. Particularly grizzly bears who spend a lot of time raising their cubs near people, which can provide a survival advantage. Male bears don't like to hang out near human use areas, and so sometimes females with cubs will actually kind of hang out. What we call them roadside bears, but within 2 miles of a roadside is still a roadside area that a male bear typically won't go into. And so it's a strategy to raise your cubs. The problem with that strategy is, yes, it does increase cub survival up to the age of 2, but a lot of those cubs, once they go between 2 and 4, that subadult age, oftentimes get themselves in trouble with humans in a variety of ways. A lot of them get hit by cars. There's a 50% increased mortality rate by vehicle if you're raised as a roadside bear. And unfortunately, a lot of them, because they're very human habituated to humans, will get themselves into human resources. When folks aren't careful with their garbage or they don't put bear attractants away, bears that are more habituated to humans are more bold and more willing to go into those areas. Unfortunately, Grizzly Bear 610's cubs have both gotten into trouble. They've both been relocated. Grizzly bears typically, historically, because they're protected under the Endangered Species Act, have what we call 3 strikes, you're out. Where if they get themselves into trouble with humans, that could be getting into garbage, that could be getting into cattle, that could be all sorts of different things. They will relocate that bear twice. If the bear then continues to return and do that behavior, the concern is the bear could become aggressive over time.
Could be dangerous to people.
Yes, and so then at that point, that bear will be put down. I'm very sad to report that one of the 2 cubs of Grizzly Bear 610 continued to return to an area where she did receive food rewards just south of Grand Teton National Park. In the winter time, a woman who thought she was going to help the bears was feeding wildlife in her backyard, and these cubs certainly got exposure to that. That cub was returning to that area, and the cub was euthanized. The other cub, by the way, for full disclosure, Wyoming Game and Fish definitely did not want to be killing that bear. It was a very controversial decision. They brought it all the way across Jackson Lake and put it on the far side of the lake in an effort as far into the wilderness of Grand Teton as they could get it.
And it stayed there for a little bit, but eventually it did work its way back south and proceeded to get into even more trouble.
The other cub has been collared, does wear an ear tag, is being very closely monitored. It has been relocated, and I think unfortunately we're going to get to a point where they're going to have to make a call on that one as well. My prediction is that one is probably not going to have long-term good survival. It's got too many bad habits at this point. It would be very difficult to correct that behavior. They have tried all sorts of bear aversion techniques, bean bags, rubber bullets. Sometimes in places like Glacier, they'll use Karelian bear dogs. They'll capture in culvert traps and really hammer on them, try to scare the bears. 399 actually got into the garbage behind Jackson Lake Lodge many, many years ago, and she was scared enough by those aversion techniques. She hasn't done it again. So you can be a recovered garbage addict, and we have hopes that her grand cub will learn from this and not share its siblings' fate. But this is the age where oftentimes they do get into trouble. We'd love to see the Wyoming State Legislature pass some legislation that bans wildlife feeding like this bear received, because of course it definitely wasn't in its best interest, and we are very worried about it. Some other interesting news. One of the bear feeding incidences was a woman who didn't properly store her garbage at a campsite where these two cubs, who were, they're not cubs, they were subadults, got into it. She was fined successfully.
She was.
By the National Park Service. I think it was a $1,600
it's pretty steep.
fine, I think I've got that right. That's unusual for us to see the Park Service actually successfully track somebody down in a campground who wasn't putting things away. There was a bear box available. She didn't use it. And so she did get a fine. So there has been some consequences, but everybody's pretty worried about that cub of 610.
And you know, this is a cub that I've seen quite a bit on tour. I've seen it quite a bit this summer. I'm feeling a little better about it because I was seeing it pretty regularly around some campsites and around some habituated areas where, you know, there are campers and there's the potential for it to get into food. After its relocation, it did come back to that camping area, and apparently it was hounded on by some hazers, which, you know, it's hard to see, but in the long run, it's good for the bear. And so this is one of the few scenarios where I'm happy to not see a grizzly because I'm hoping that this particular cub is deep in the forest, eating its natural food and avoiding humans. I'm hoping that maybe it learned to stay away from people. These bears are raised in a national park, and the unfortunate reality of that is that a national park is very different than the world surrounding that national park. And it's when these bears do leave the national park, they often get into trouble. And so I'm hoping that this cub, you know, I don't see it anytime soon, and it stays way up in the wilderness and feeds on, you know, ants and the flowers and hopefully lots and lots of berries that are coming into season. Yeah.
So that's another reason to have a good berry crop.
Exactly.
Right? So grizzly bear 610, when she was a subadult, disappeared for like, oh gosh, I want to say like 4 or 5 years into the backcountry, and we all just figured she was dead. And the bear who did stay in the front country was her sibling, 615, who unfortunately was shot by a moose hunter as a subadult. And so I kind of figured that was the end of the triplets. 587, I think, got into cattle, I think, the male cub.
Both of her siblings have passed away at this point.
But I was stunned when she showed back up into the front country to sort of with her first set of cubs and was sort of issuing that same roadside behavior that her mother had for their protection. My hope is some of these offspring will just get themselves way back into the wilderness and keep their noses clean. And while I'd love to see them, I'd rather they be safe. So definitely the best wishes on that. All right, so enough on that, since that's a bit of a Debbie Downer. Let's see here. Les asks, are you going to make jam out of the berries this year? Listen, I have to get out of the office for more than like a hot minute to make jam. I really am looking forward to our jam season. I might have to go for wild rose hip tea again because I promised I would share my wild rose hip tea, guys, and I didn't. Maybe I'll remember next month. It's delicious.
Oh my gosh, I have to try it.
Definitely think I've got to go for the wild rose hip tea again for sure. Got my vitamin C all winter from that. But yeah, I usually do make some kind of a berry jam. I'll keep you guys posted if I can get away for a couple hours. It's kind of tough. But I might get my 2.5-year-old to pick some berries. We'll see.
There you go. That's a good activity. I don't know if that's like a good
habit to teach her, though, because I don't want her to like pick the wrong berries.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, the baneberry.
I have to think a little bit about whether that's something I want to encourage her to do. But great question.
So, two of my good friends, Verlin and Elise, who are also guides at EcoTour Adventures, they spent their weekend actually picking a ton of chokecherries. And
there we go.
There we go. Yeah. They made chokecherry syrup, and it's so good. I was so impressed, and I've been inspired, and I think this weekend I'm going to go and pick service berries and maybe chokecherries if I can find them. I know where there's service berries. I'm not sure about chokecherries.
I wonder if there's a way you can make like a wine.
Right?
Like, can you ferment the fruits?
Yeah.
Somebody has to have done this. If you know about this in the comment section, I kind of want to try it.
And so
maybe I'll make a video.
Exactly. I have to give Elise credit for her like cooking skills because, and she's the one I always go to for advice. And so I went to her and I asked her, what berry should I pick and what should I make? And she told me to mix chokecherry and serviceberry. The serviceberry kind of tastes like a blueberry. It's very sweet. And the chokecherry has a tartness, and they complement each other very well. And so I think that's going to be my weekend activity.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. If you guys have any thoughts on this, Don says he just picked some wild blueberries, and I love it, Don, and tame blueberries.
Tame blueberries.
I love it. Don, let us know what you're going to do with them now. I want to know. It's such a fun season. Oh, Linda.
Oh, lots of blackberries.
Linda's got blackberries. Lois. Oh, nice.
Whoa, what are
wineberries? Barb, what does a wineberry? How's it taste? Is it like sweet or is it like winey?
Yeah.
Winey.
I assume it's good for
Wine-ish.
making wine. Would it be better than chokecherry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know.
Yeah. Oh, I'm curious. This is wonderful.
Oh, mulberry.
Oh, Elise, who's in our comment section, says, does anybody pick wild mulberries? That one I missed from the East. All right, Elise, there you go. That's pretty cool.
That's super cool.
Let's see here. Devet asks, what age can a bear start having cubs? Technically, once they reach adulthood, they can be of breeding age. So we don't exactly know what age like male cubs are fertile, but probably 2 to 3 years old. Female cubs definitely can be bred, but their first set of cubs or any cub is usually not terribly successful. They don't usually survive very long, but they certainly could be impregnated as a subadult 3-4 years old.
And let's see, this spring we had, actually, I believe, one of 399's cubs, 963, is that the number? She actually came out of the den with what I assume was 2 cubs, and early on she lost one of those cubs, and then later in the season she lost another. Now, she's a very young bear. She's only about 4 or 5 years old, and so she's very young to be successfully raising cubs, and oftentimes these female grizzlies go through kind of a trial and error period. We actually think that 399 is a roadside bear, probably because she might have had cubs that were killed by a large adult male in the backcountry, and so she changed her strategy in order to raise her offspring. And so when we have these young females reproducing, they often lose those cubs early on. The males, you know, they can breed early on too, but they often don't because of competition with other males.
Yeah, big male is not going to let him anywhere near those females.
Like a big 9-year-old grizzly that's like 600 pounds isn't going to let like a 3-year-old 400-pound grizzly get any action. No,
definitely not.
Exactly.
So yeah, and one of my favorite grizzlies in the park, her name's Blondie. Just failed and failed and failed and failed and failed until she was maybe 10 years old. Yeah. When she started getting more successful raising cubs. So remember, cubs have an 80% mortality rate. You have to raise them for over 2 years. Bears are omnivores. They eat both plant and vegetative material. They have to change what they're eating. They have a constantly diversified diet. I can't remember how many food types they eat and you know how varied it is, but it's unbelievable. It's in the hundreds.
It's insane. Yeah.
And you have to learn all that to be successful as a cub, and as a mother you have to teach all of that.
And you have to find enough of those patchy, sparse food resources to not only get yourself through hibernation, but to get your cub through hibernation as well.
So a real
definitely
challenge
tricky.
for sure. Yeah, all right, let's see. We've got just a couple minutes. See if we've got any more. Oh, Barb says, wine berries, mainly in Appalachia, raspberry like that are delicious. Ooh, like a raspberry?
Ooh, a raspberry jam.
That sounds so good.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
Do you
all
know
over
where some
that.
raspberries are?
Kristin says we've made elderberry wine before. I've heard of elderberry wine.
I think you have to cook it.
I've heard of currant wine too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do more Googling. This is like the Googling episode. Google it. But I'm gonna have to
We're
figure
gonna be really
how to
busy
make
after
wine.
this.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. This is pretty great.
And elderberry is a berry that I grew up with back in Colorado, and I read that you have to cook it. You can't just eat it off of the stem because it'll give you an upset stomach. It's not going to kill you like a baneberry, but I've heard you do have to cook it.
Yeah,
and
makes
so
sense.
It would make a great one for wine.
Safety first.
Yes, safety first, please.
Oh, Elise in the comment section, remember our berry food product expert. She says, yes, you can make grown-up drinks with berries. We're also planning on making a chokecherry gin. Ooh. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I know gin's made with juniper berries historically,
It is.
right?
So maybe made with juniper but flavored with chokecherry?
No, maybe just made with chokecherries.
Or just made with chokecherries?
I mean, I don't know. We'd have to ask Elise.
Okay,
I'm
I
no
have no
expert.
idea.
Maybe I want to try and do a gin.
That'd be so good.
God, imagine a berry flavored gin.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds really good.
Well, if you do that, Elise, you're going to have to share it with everyone in the office.
Yeah, do I get to try at least a
Exactly.
little? Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, very cool. All right, guys, I think we got all of them. I'm feeling really good about it. If we missed your comments by some mistake and I went too fast through, let me know. I will definitely go through them more carefully when our broadcast is done and get all of the answers for you. And throughout the week, if you're catching this later on in the week. But guys, it's been such a pleasure spending the month with you.
Awesome.
Big thanks for Tyler coming back for a second month and helping me out with all of the things I don't know anything about that he's such a good expert on. Always a pleasure having you, Tyler.
I think that we help each other out because I'm constantly learning from you also.
So super duper fun. Guys, it's one of the great pleasures of every month to get to spend this time with you guys. Thanks so much for continuing to tune in and your support of EcoTour Adventures. We definitely we just love doing this. We love hanging out with you guys. I hope you guys have just a wild month. You have a great August. You get out there in the wild. You do something fun. We will see you the first Wednesday of next month of September.
Yes, I can't believe it's September.
Oh my gosh.
Holy
It'll be
cow.
fall by then. But so long for now. And thanks again.
Thanks, guys.